Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing a video about the top 8 debut novels that I read in 2017. I had to go ahead and cheat even more this year when it came to a best of list because I feel like 2017 was such a great reading year for me. I came up with the idea to do a video about my top debut novels, and that way I can also shine some light on some people that have written newer books and maybe introduce you to an author that you have not yet read that I think that you should give a chance to. I hope that you enjoy this, and here we go. The first book that I'm going to talk about is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is the first book in the Winter Night trilogy, and it is a slow burn fantasy that is inspired by Russian folklore. The story is really very character driven. There's a lot that's happening in this town, and there's one girl who is being called out as a witch, and she's being blamed for a lot of the problems that are happening, but it's really up to her in order to save everything, in order to save her family, in order to save the town. She's really the only one that can do that. Like I said, this is a really slow burn fantasy, so if you're not into character driven stories or slow burn reads, it wouldn't necessarily be for you, but if you do like those books that you can really get truly lost in, I would highly recommend this one, especially for a really cold winter night where you can be just snuggled under a blanket. The next one on my list is Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. This is an East Asian inspired fantasy, and it's a retelling of Snow White, but it's all told from the evil queen's perspective. So we see this young girl and we really get to know her backstory, and you get really invested in her character and you know where the story's gonna go. So sometimes it's really difficult to root for her, but you really do feel like you're on her side while you're reading this. I thought that this one was so immersive, and just all of the food and all of the culture that was included in it, that's really what made this a standout fantasy novel to me. Cannot wait to read the next book. The next book is going to be told from the Snow White character's point of view, and I have no idea how this is going to be wrapped up without my heart being broken into pieces. One of the things that I particularly liked about it is, as I said, it follows the evil queen. So she goes from being a little bit innocent to really going full-blown evil, just like going for it when the opportunities arise. And it was fascinating. The next one on my list is When Dimple Met Rishi by Santaya Menon. This is a debut contemporary novel, and it follows a girl named Dimple who convinces her parents to let her go to this summer program for computer coders, and her parents agree, which she finds to be really shocking because normally they're just trying to pressure her into getting married and to wear makeup and all the things that she does not like doing. So she gets there and she ends up meeting Rishi, who was actually sent to the camp to be Dimple's future husband. Dimple's parents and Rishi's parents set this up with one another. They thought that their children would potentially be a good match for each other. They sent him to the camp to try to woo Dimple, and Dimple is a very strong and independent young woman. Rishi is a hopeless romantic, and he is so enamored by the idea that Dimple could be his future wife, and they have one of the best meet cutes ever. There were so many points during this novel that I was just laughing out loud. I thought it was so funny, and I really liked seeing a lot of the Indian culture, and also just this fascinating dynamic of wanting to not let your parents down, but also wanting to do your own thing in life. So it was really entertaining. Then I have Frostblood by Ellie Blake. This is the first book in the Frostblood saga, and the second book is already out, and the third one's coming out next year. I do not know how she wrote these so quickly, but this first book was so entertaining. It is a YA fantasy, and while it does have a bunch of tropes that you often see in young adult fantasy, I felt like they were done really well, and the lore that went into the world is really what captivated me and really held my interest. It's an elemental based magic system, so it kind of reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, except like opposite, because the ice people were the maybe not so nice people, whereas in Avatar the Fire Nation are the ones who attack. It follows a girl named Ruby. She lives in a world where the Frostbloods are ruling, and she is a Fireblood, and Firebloods were overthrown many years ago. There are no Firebloods that are currently in the kingdom that she's living in, and any that have ever been discovered are always immediately killed. Obviously it's found out that she's a Fireblood within like the first chapter of the book, and then the rest of it follows her on the run while she tries to learn about her powers and figure out how to deal with life now that she's been discovered. Then I have Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. This was a really fun book. It follows a girl named Alosa, who is the daughter of the Pirate King. He is in charge of like most of the sea. She concocts this scheme to get herself kidnapped by this rival pirate ship in order to try to uncover a piece of this map that will lead to treasure. So Alosa is extremely sassy. She's really fun to read from. She has a lot of witty banter with the first mate aboard the Nightfarer, which is the ship that she is held captive on. And it's really funny to see her get into these situations. She's constantly one step ahead of everyone else. The book ended with a huge cliffhanger, so I'm so glad that I have the second one in my possession right now. I'm planning on reading that like ASAP. The one thing that I will say was that there wasn't really any like pirate talk, which is what I had been looking forward to. But even despite that, I really enjoyed the story and I thought it was a really fun adventure novel. So I would definitely recommend this one if you are into pirates. Then I want to talk about What I Lost by Alexandra Ballard. I don't currently have a copy of this book, but it is en route on its way to me from Book Outlet. I got it during the Boxing Day sale, so I'm pretty excited about that. This book follows a girl who is currently in a rehab center for anorexia. It was really interesting because the story really focused on her treatment and on her trying to overcome her eating disorder and try to get better. I thought it was a really intriguing look into the mind of somebody who is struggling with anorexia and who's dealing with this body dysmorphia. Also, the way that her parents factored into it and the dynamic of the girls who were in the treatment center along with her. It was just so well done and I really appreciated the story. I think it's really important. I could see how it would be triggering for some people who currently are anorexic because there is a lot of talk about sizes and there's a lot of talk about food, but it seemed like a really accurate portrayal of what someone would be going through. So I thought it was really interesting. I honestly read this book in one day because I could not put it down. I was so interested in it. And yeah, I just really love it. And I will read anything that Alexandra Ballard writes. I hope that she is going to be coming out with a new book soon. Next on my list is This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada. This book is a biological thriller and it was so exciting. It really kept me on the edge of my seat. Pretty much every single chapter ended with a kind of cliffhanger that made it so that I could not put this book down. Like I had to know what was going to happen next. I had to know how the characters were going to escape the situations that they were being thrown into. Basically what's going on here is that there is a group of people who live underground. They're kind of like a corrupt company. They're only allowing people to live down there if they can have full control on their panels because it takes place in the future. So people have these panels and you're able to download like apps into yourself so that you have certain qualities. You're basically controlling your genetics, but this company wants control over them. So there are a lot of people that rebelled and live above ground, but above ground there is this disease that is just running rampant and they really need to discover a cure. So the leading geneticist in the world passes away and his daughter is the only person who is qualified to find what her father left behind, to like decode the clues that he kind of left for her so that she can get this vaccination and she can essentially help save the world. The only way that she can do that is by teaming up with this soldier from Cartaxis who is the corrupt company within the book, and it was just really good. I definitely recommend reading this. If you like sci-fi but you're not really into space novels, I would highly suggest reading this one because it was so different than anything that I've ever read. Every time that I thought that I figured something out, another curveball was thrown my way. And I just thought the whole thing was really well done. And this is actually going to be a series. Not quite sure how many books are in it, but I know that there's going to be a second one coming out next year. And I will definitely be picking it up once it's out. And then the last book on my list is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is a great book for fans of Shakespeare. It follows a group of college kids who exclusively put on Shakespeare plays and they constantly talk to each other in Shakespeare's iambic pentameter. They're just quoting things at each other all the time. It is not all fun and games because the novel begins taking place 10 years after a tragic event happened at their college, and one of the boys who went to the school during that time is being released from jail. He goes back to the school along with the police officer who imprisoned him, and he recounts all of his memories leading up to this one tragic event, and this is honestly a modern tragedy. It is such a well-written book. The characters are all completely flawed, and it makes them feel really real, and it's a really engaging read, so I definitely recommend it. Again, especially if you enjoy Shakespeare, I think that you'll really enjoy this, but don't go into it expecting like sunshine and rainbows because it is just not that. So those are all of the 8 books that I wanted to include in my top debut novels of 2017 video. Let me know if you've read any of these debuts or if there are any other debuts that you've read that you think that I should check out that I maybe haven't gotten to yet. That's all that I have for this video, and I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!